Right now, while you're reading this, your brain is physically changing its own wiring. For decades, scientists believed that stopped almost completely once you hit adulthood. That belief has been proven wrong, and the real mechanism is more useful than the myth ever was. So what is actually rewiring, and how do you deliberately steer it? The answer is a process called neuroplasticity, and it never fully switches off. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to form, strengthen, prune, and sometimes remove connections between neurons based on experience and learning. The principle traces back to Donald Hebb's 1940s rule, often summarized as neurons that fire together wire together. For decades after Hebb, scientists believed this process sharply dropped off after childhood and mostly stopped in adults. That view is now considered outdated. Plasticity continues throughout life, though the speed and the specific brain regions involved shift as you age. Scientists have even confirmed adult neurogenesis, the birth of entirely new neurons in specific regions like the hippocampus's dentate gyrus. Its exact scale and function in humans is still an active area of research, but the core finding stands. Now let's look at how this rewiring actually happens at the cellular level. Long-term potentiation, called LTP, is the best-studied mechanism. High-frequency stimulation of a synapse strengthens its response and makes it more likely to be reused later. The opposite process, long-term depression, weakens connections you're not using. Both processes run on calcium signaling through NMDA receptors and physical changes in the synapse's structure. A protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, gets released by activity and supports the growth of new synapses. Glial cells, including astrocytes, microglia, and oligodendrocytes, shape this entire process by pruning connections and managing inflammation. Chronic inflammation is reliably linked to reduced plasticity and faster cognitive decline. This isn't just theory sitting in a lab. Functional reorganization has been directly documented in humans recovering from stroke, blindness, deafness, and limb amputation. Edward Taub at the University of Alabama at Birmingham pioneered constraint-induced movement therapy, forcing stroke patients to use their weakened limb. Those patients showed measurable cortical reorganization and real recovery, months and even years after their original injury. That finding overturned the old textbook belief that stroke recovery had a narrow, early window and then closed permanently. Norman Doidge summarized this research for general audiences in The Brain That Changes Itself in 2007, followed by The Brain's Way of Healing in 2015. Researcher Michael Merzenish and his team at the University of California, San Francisco showed that targeted training produces measurable cortical map changes within just weeks. So now the real question: which specific practices actually drive this change? Aerobic exercise is the most consistently proven one. Randomized trials show that 4 to 12 weeks of moderate aerobic activity, 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, increases hippocampal volume and raises BDNF. The effect is dose-dependent, and it's most reliable in older adults specifically. Skill learning with progressive challenge is the second major driver. Learning an instrument, a new language, or a complex motor skill produces measurable thickening in the relevant cortical regions. The key ingredient is deliberate practice, meaning a task that's slightly beyond your current ability, paired with feedback and repetition. Meditation and focused attention show measurable effects too. Long-term meditators show documented changes in default mode network connectivity, amygdala volume, and insular cortex activity. The results vary between studies, but several meta-analyses confirm the effect is distinct from a placebo response. Sleep is not optional in this process. Synaptic consolidation, the process that locks in new learning, happens specifically during slow-wave and REM sleep. Sleep deprivation reliably impairs plasticity within just hours, not days. Nutrition plays a role as well. Diets that stabilize blood sugar, include omega-3 intake, and maintain moderate caloric sufficiency support BDNF production. Mediterranean and DASH dietary patterns are linked to measurable cognitive preservation in long-term observational studies. Environmental novelty matters through a completely different pathway than focused practice. New environments, unfamiliar movement patterns, and new sensory inputs drive plasticity on their own, independent of deliberate skill training. Rich social interaction and active language use engage broad neural networks and are linked to lower dementia risk in long-term cohort studies. There's also a process called deliberate depracticing, or extinction. Old patterns get pruned through reduced use, which means habits left unrewarded eventually lose their grip on you. That cuts both ways, and it's worth being honest about the limits here. Claims about full regeneration or complete recovery from advanced neurodegeneration through lifestyle alone go further than the actual evidence supports. The research is much stronger on small to modest cognitive gains in healthy people than on reversing established disease. A lot of popular neuroplasticity content compresses years of gradual change into a promise of instant transformation. The science behind it is completely real. The miracle speed version of it is not. Real change follows the mechanisms described here. LTP, BDNF, aerobic exercise, deliberate practice, consolidated sleep, stable nutrition, and consistent social engagement. Those changes happen over weeks and months, not overnight, and they depend entirely on what you consistently put around the practice. Your brain doesn't need convincing to change. It's already doing that right now, with or without your input. The only real choice you have is whether that change happens by accident or by design. If you want to see exactly how constraint-induced movement therapy helped stroke patients regain function years after their injury, there's another video on this channel covering that story in full. Watch that one next to see neuroplasticity in action, not just in theory.